At 10 o'clock this morning, members of the Royal Fiji Military Forces took over the government of Fiji.
That was the catalyst that started the greatest exodus Fiji had ever suffered.
Democracy came to a sudden end in Fiji at 10 this morning when 10 armed soldiers led by Lieutenant Colonel Rabuka burst into the Parliament chamber, forcibly removing the Prime Minister.
And the last thing I wanted to do was leave the country because we loved Fiji. It was home. I was born in a place called Masi Masi, gravel road, very hilly up and down, hot, very dusty. Back in the village, we had no radio. And the other thing was there was no electricity. When I finished high school, I went to my parents and I said, I want to study in New Zealand. And my dad said, well, that would be nice, but I have no money to send you. But luckily, I found a job teaching. At the end of the year, I collected enough and I flew into New Zealand. I thought if I did a master's degree, I'd stand in a better state getting a good job back home in Fiji. So I went and joined the Ministry of Education. I was there for just under 1.5 years, when by chance I was spotted at a function by the head of Foreign Affairs. And he said, you should come and join me in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My first question was, what do you do? A request came from the United Nations that they wanted to build a delegation to go to Palau to observe the election. So we went and observed the election. Everything went fine. We shook hands with the newly elected president of the Republic, and we were flying to Hawaii to write our report for the United Nations. When we landed in Hawaii, we got a message saying that the president had just been shot. So they killed the bugger. He'd just been elected president. We knew we couldn't do much. So all of us flew back to our respective country. Our Secretary of Foreign Affairs said that he would like me to go to London. But my wife had a very good job. She was also a university graduate from New Zealand, and she was as intelligent as anyone else. But she agreed to accompany me, and I was totally grateful for that. As part of the diplomatic function in London was that once a year you went to meet the Queen. When the Queen came and shook hands, and she left, and the Duke came, he shook hands and he looked at me and he said, are you from Fiji? I said, yes, sir. They still drink that foul, muddy stuff. Kava. Yes. Do you still drink that stuff? Yeah. Terrible stuff. And he said that and he walked away. 2 of us were selected to go to Oxford. It was an interesting mix of group, We had people from all over the world studying in Foreign Service program. And the guy from Kenya, his name was Paul Moara. And one day he was sitting and having a beer and he said to me, one day very soon in Fiji, you will have a military coup. My colleague from Fiji was sitting there. We looked at each other and said, he's talking rubbish. I said, you're talking rubbish, mate. He said, what do you mean rubbish? He said, you've got a big army, you'll have a coup. He said, no, we won't. He said, you're talking about Fiji. We're very civilized, we won't have a coup. And in 1987, on 14th of May, when the coup took place, the first person I thought of was Paul Moara. And I thought, if I could see him now, I'll slap him, If he hadn't said that, maybe we wouldn't have had a coup. On the day of the actual coup, as normal, we took our children to their auntie's place, took my wife, Roshni, to University of South Pacific, and I came to work in Foreign Affairs. Suddenly, the door of the briefing room opened, bang! In knocked a guy and he said, the military has taken over the government. The army was looking for William Sutherland. He was a Kiwi, a New Zealander, who was the head of the Prime Minister's office. I rang New Zealand High Commission and I said, William is with me, can you send a car down? Then I marched William down the back way. I went outside, had a look, couldn't see any army. Then he ran into the waiting car of the New Zealand High Commission. Unfortunately, somehow or the other, the army came to know that William had escaped. I got a phone call on Saturday morning. They said, I know where your children go to school. You better be careful. And that kind of intimidation was ongoing and frightening. In the meantime, of course, Rabuka was shouting over the radio.
Don't go Kalo, don't go Vanua. My God, my country.
And arousing the Fijians, and there were riots in town, there were all kinds of looting going on. And one of the reporters asked him, who gave you authority to carry out the coup? And he said, I gave the authority. And what about the Indians? He said, what about the Indians? They can go back to India. Some of us were third and fourth generation Fiji Indians. We had no connection to India. Where would you go? And the last thing I wanted to do was leave the country because we loved Fiji. We were born there. Grandparents were born there. And it was home. That was my Tūrangawaewae. That was my home. The Governor General was supposed to announce Government of National Unity one day. But before he could make the announcement, Rabuka decided he didn't want a Government of National Unity after all, carried out the second coup. I came home and I said to my wife, that's it. We can't stay here. Tomorrow second coup, the next day third coup, next day fourth coup. No, we can't. For the sake of our children, we have to leave. So we sold a lot of our things and left on 15th of November 1987 for New Zealand. We came and we stayed with very good friends of ours, Pereiras. We were there for 5 weeks. They wouldn't take any money from us. I applied for about 100 jobs. Wherever I applied, I rang and they said, oh, you don't have New Zealand experience. And I said, I got New Zealand degrees. That didn't matter. However, I got interviewed for two. One was the Ministry of Health and the other one was the Ministry of Education. Roshni and I had a chat and she said, take education because you have a master's degree in education. So being a good public servant, I arrived there 8 o'clock in the morning and I stood in that corridor and I thought to myself, what a sad moment in life this is. Not long ago, I was somebody. I had mana. People respected me. I had a good job. Family was doing well, and now I got a lonely figure standing there. But I decided life has to go on. I needed to feed my family. I came home, I said to my wife, I'm not sure whether I'm the right person for that job, but I'll do my best. Then I got a job as a human resource manager, and I did enjoy that work immensely. And then Te Papa Tongarewa was starting up as a new museum. And one of their consultants, he rang me up and he said, there's a job for Director Human Resources, why don't you give it a shot? It was a great job. After that, I joined New Zealand Police as a Human Resource Manager and Commissioner of Police's Office. 3 years later, I had a call from Kongaria National Trust. I came and talked to Roshni and my wife and I said, look, it's a lovely environment, less stress. I think I would enjoy working with Maori people because they're lovely people. And I worked with them until I retired. Having said that, I do more work now than when I was a paid employee. I'm a Justice of the Peace, so I do a lot of JP work at Citizens Advice Bureau. I'm also on the council of the Hutt Valley Justice of the Peace Association. I also do JP work at the library in Wainuiomata. I belong to Pitani Rotary Club. We have an annual fair which rakes in about $24,000-$25,000. I'm a trustee of the Fiji Association. People come to my place quite regularly and seek my assistance. I'm very passionate about all the volunteer work that I do. I was given the Queen's Service Medal, for which I feel very humble, incredibly humble, because coming to a new country, making a mark, doing the best I can, and then being honored for volunteer work. It couldn't be any better, couldn't get any better from where I was to where I am now. And this country has been absolutely wonderful. And as they say in Maori, we look for our Tūrangawaewae, and for me, I have found my Tūrangawaewae. Ko taku whare tēnei, I nāia nei. This is my home now.